My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, then filed for divorce claiming I was abusive. Now she's trying to steal our $350, $0 house and $200, $0 in savings. But I just found out she secretly deposited $150, $0 into her sister's account after we separated. I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not with our neighbor of all people. It's like some twisted soap opera, but all too real. The crazy part is I almost missed it. At first I just thought Sarah was acting a little distant, maybe stressed from work or the kids. But then little things started adding up, her phone going silent when I walked into the room, her disappearing for hours, and her suddenly wearing new perfume that I didn't recognize. When I finally found her phone one night, I saw the texts. Damn, I saw the texts. They weren't explicit at first, just flirty jokes and late-night messages filled with innuendos. But then I saw the pictures. There was Sarah in our bed, half naked, with the neighbor, Mike. I still remember the shock that hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was screwing around with the guy next door. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. There were messages from her saying they'd been doing it for months, that she felt alive again with him. I felt like my world was collapsing. I looked at the phone, then at the photos, and I couldn't breathe. The worst part was how she lied about it when I confronted her. I brought her the phone and showed her the evidence. Her eyes widened and she spun this pathetic story about how she was just talking to Mike about some work stuff, that I was imagining things. She said she was under so much stress, that I was overreacting and that I needed to trust her. But I knew better. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she hesitated before she spoke, the way her hands trembled. She lied through her teeth, trying to make me doubt what I saw, but I wasn't falling for it. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, trying to process what I'd just learned. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, our wedding, the kids, the house, the years of building a life together, she threw it all away for some quick sex with the neighbor. It was like she was trying to destroy what little stability we had. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, but deep down I knew this wasn't about me. It was about her choosing to be with someone else, someone who clearly didn't deserve her loyalty either. The next morning I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I needed answers, real answers, so I started digging. I found out that she'd been sneaking around for months, hiding her phone, deleting messages, and even lying about her whereabouts. I checked the bank account and saw charges for dinners and hotels with Mike, then a sudden deposit into her sister's account, $150 cash. That was a huge red flag. It looked like she was planning something, maybe even trying to hide money from me. I felt sick. How could she be so manipulative? How could she lie to my face every day and act like everything was normal? That's when I realized I had to get ahead of her plans. I knew she was trying to spin this story in her favor, claiming I was abusive, trying to take the house and the savings. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I started consulting a lawyer, gathering evidence, and planning my next move. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with everything we worked for, our house, our savings, our future. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did. The betrayal cut deep, but I refused to be the victim in this. I'd fight for what's mine, and I'd make sure she understood that you don't cheat, lie, and steal without consequences. After I uncovered everything, her affair, the secret deposit, the lies, I felt like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I sat in my living room staring at the bank statements, the text messages, and the photos. My mind was racing. How could she do this to me, to us? We had a life together, 2 kids, a nice house, a routine that I thought was solid, but it was all a Sarah had been sneaking around behind my back for months, and I had just been too blind or too trusting to see it. The rage started bubbling up, but underneath it was a deep, aching sadness. I kept asking myself what I did wrong. Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs? But the truth was, she was the one who chose to cheat, to lie, to steal. I wasn't perfect, but I had always been faithful, honest, trying to build a future for us. Her betrayal felt like a punch in the stomach, and I knew I couldn't just sit back and let her get away with it. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I called her at work, told her I wanted to meet. She was defensive from the start, trying to spin some story about how she was just stressed, how Mike was just a friend, and how I was reading too much into things. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied as if I was supposed to buy it. But I was. I had the evidence, and she knew it. The confrontation turned heated fast. I threw the bank statements on the table and showed her the deposit into her sister's account. "Where did this money come from, Sarah?" I asked calmly but firmly. Her face went pale for a moment, then she started the usual bullshit about how it was a loan from her sister, how she was planning to start a business, how she was trying to fix things. But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I knew she was lying. She always did when she was cornered. She then started crying, saying how she felt trapped, how Mike made her feel alive, and how she just wanted to be happy. I looked at her and felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about everything, that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me or steal from us anymore. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I was filing for divorce. Her bitchy attitude flipped in an instant. She screamed, called me controlling, said I was abusive for questioning her, and insisted she was the victim. Classic Sarah, always playing the victim, always trying to twist things around to make herself look innocent. That night I couldn't sleep again. The betrayal was like a deep wound, and I kept replaying everything in my head. The way she lied, the way she looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes. I felt a strange sense of clarity. If she could do all this behind my back, what else was she capable of? I started thinking about the future, about what I needed to do to protect myself and the kids. I knew I had to act fast. She was already planning to take as much as she could, our house, the savings, maybe even the money she deposited into her sister's account. I had to stop her. I reached out to a lawyer, started gathering documents, and made copies of everything. I also hired a private investigator to look into her activities. I needed proof of her lies and her betrayal, and I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I wanted to be ready when the time came to fight her in court. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and determination. This wasn't just about money or the house, it was about justice. I wasn't going to let her get away with destroying what we built. Meanwhile, Sarah kept up her act, sending me angry texts accusing me of being controlling, abusive, and jealous. She even tried to turn the kids against me, telling them I was mean and unfair. But I knew better. I knew who she really was. The woman who cheated, lied, and stole from us. I just didn't realize how far she'd go until I found that deposit into her sister's account 150, that she secretly moved after we separated. That was a game changer. She was trying to hide her tracks to cover her ass, and I was going to make sure I caught every bit of it. I refused to be the victim anymore. I was going to fight for everything, our house, our savings, my reputation. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I was done playing nice. Sarah had crossed a line, and I was ready to take her down. It's crazy how betrayal can turn your world upside down in a matter of days, but I was determined not to let her win. Not this time. After I gathered all the evidence and made my plans, I realized I needed to act fast. Sarah was already trying to spin her story, telling everyone I was controlling and abusive, trying to paint herself as the victim. She knew I was onto her, and I could see her panic creeping in. The deposit into her sister's account was the last straw. It proved she was hiding money, possibly trying to run away with it, or at least keep it out of reach during the divorce. That's when I decided I had to escalate, to get ahead of her before she managed to do even more damage. I spoke to my lawyer that same day. We went over all the evidence I had, from the bank statements, the photos, the messages, and the deposit slip. I told him I suspected she was planning to claim that she had no money left, that I was trying to cut her off or control her. But with the evidence, I knew I could fight her on that. We filed for immediate legal action to freeze her accounts and prevent her from transferring more money. I also started the process of filing for divorce, clearly stating I wanted full custody of the kids and the house. I was prepared to fight her in court, but I knew this was only the beginning. Meanwhile, Sarah was still playing her games. She kept sending me angry texts accusing me of being crazy, paranoid, and abusive. even though I had done nothing wrong except find out the truth. She wanted to make me look like the bad guy, but I wasn't falling for that anymore. I had enough. I had proof of her affair, her lies, her secret deposit, and her attempts to hide money. I also hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to confirm her whereabouts and see if she was up to anything else. I needed to be 10 steps ahead. One day, I found out she had gone to the bank and tried to withdraw a large sum of cash, claiming she needed it for a business investment. I had the pie follow her, and sure enough, she was meeting with Mike again, probably to discuss more shady plans. That was the moment I knew I had to act decisively. I couldn't let her drain our savings or run away with the money. I contacted my lawyer again, and we filed a motion to seize her assets and investigate the source of the deposit into her sister's account. It was a whirlwind of legal battles, accusations, and emotional chaos. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. She kept lying, trying to deny everything, but I had her cornered. I also discovered that she'd been secretly seeing Mike at their house when I was at work, sometimes even during our supposed date nights. The betrayal was worse than I thought. The woman I'd loved and trusted was now just a stranger who had lied to my face, had sex with our neighbor, and was scheming to steal from me. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I kept replaying her words, how she told me she loved me, how she said she was just stressed, how she insisted she was trying to fix things. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who was willing to destroy everything for her own pleasure and greed. I couldn't help but think about the kids, how they'd be affected by all this chaos. I wanted to protect them, to shield them from her lies and her schemes. At the same time, I was trying to stay grounded. I knew I couldn't let her see how much she was hurting me. I had to be strong, for the sake of the kids and for myself. I started documenting everything, every conversation, every financial transaction, every suspicious activity. I didn't trust her one bit anymore. My gut told me she was planning something even worse, maybe trying to hide more money or even leave town with the kids once she thought she had the upper hand. I also reached out to some close friends and family for support. I didn't want to go through this alone, especially with her trying to turn everyone against me. They saw through her lies, and some even helped me gather more evidence. I was determined to fight her in court and make sure she couldn't get away with what she was doing. The house, the savings, the kids' stability, all of it was at stake. The more I dug, the clearer it became that Sarah was not the woman I thought I knew. She was cunning, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. The deposit into her sister's account was just the tip of the iceberg. I could tell she was planning to disappear, to take the money and run, but I wasn't going to let her. I had my lawyer, my evidence, and a resolve I never knew I had. I was ready to fight for what was mine, my house, my savings, my reputation, and for my children's future. The chaos was far from over, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going down without a fight. The court hearings came quicker than I expected, and I had to scramble to keep up. Sarah was doing everything she could to spin her story, claiming I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and manipulative, anything to turn the judge against me. She brought her sister into court, claiming the $150, $0 deposit was a gift, a loan, or some legitimate business deal. But I had the bank statements, the texts, the investigators' reports. I had everything lined up to prove she was lying, that she was trying to hide money, and that she had been cheating on me with Mike for months. During the hearings, I saw her desperation. She was trying to act innocent, crying fake tears, pretending like I was the bad guy. But the evidence spoke for itself. The judge ordered a temporary freeze on her accounts, and I was awarded full custody of the kids, something I fought hard for because I knew she was unfit to be a stable parent after all this. Still, I felt sick thinking about what she was capable of. She was already scheming to get around the court's orders, I was sure of it. While all this was happening, I kept digging. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every penny she'd spent or deposited, especially the money into her sister's account. Turns out she'd been funneling money for months, cash withdrawals, transfers, even some payments to Mike's account. All of it was suspicious, and I had enough to prove she was actively hiding assets. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she was planning her escape. I caught her trying to sell some jewelry and valuables she claimed were hers, but that I knew belonged to us. She was trying to liquidate everything, probably to get as much cash as possible before the divorce finalized. One night I caught her trying to transfer the last of the money online, claiming it was for emergencies. I blocked her access and immediately alerted my lawyer. We filed a motion to seize any further funds she was trying to move. I knew she was desperate, and I had to stay one step ahead. She was spinning her web of lies, but I was gathering enough evidence to expose her fully. I also hired a private investigator to follow her again, just to make sure she wasn't planning to leave town or take the kids somewhere she thought I wouldn't find her. Meanwhile, her attitude was getting worse. She started accusing me of all kinds of things, saying I was controlling, that I was violent, even claiming I hit her. None of it was true, but I could see she was trying to manipulate the court and everyone around her. Her lawyer even tried to argue that I was emotionally unstable, but I had all the proof, texts, bank statements, witness statements, to counter that. I was determined not to let her run the show. I knew her game. She wanted to make me look like the bad guy so she could keep the house and the money, but I wasn't going to let her. The house was the biggest prize. It was worth around $350. And I knew she'd try to claim it as her own. She kept insisting we split everything evenly, but I had the documents showing our savings, another $200, and proof that she'd been secretly depositing money into her sister's account after we separated. She was trying to hide assets, trying to play the victim, but I had the evidence to fight her in court. I also learned that she'd been telling the kids I was mean and abusive, trying to turn them against me. That was the lowest blow. One day, I found out she'd been trying to convince her sister to lie in court, claiming the deposit was a loan from her. The sister, surprisingly, refused. She told me she knew what Sarah was up to and that she was uncomfortable with the whole thing. That was a small victory. It showed that not everyone was on Sarah's side, and maybe she was losing her grip on her lies. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was going to fight for the house, the savings, and most importantly, my kids. I knew Sarah's game was to drain everything and disappear, but I was determined to stop her. The emotional toll was intense. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been blinded by love for so long, trusting her blindly even when things didn't add up. Now I saw her true colors: greedy, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. I couldn't believe I had been so naive, but I also knew I had to keep fighting. I couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built, especially not the kids' future, just because she was too selfish to be honest. Every day brought new surprises, more lies she tried to hide, more attempts to manipulate the system, more evidence I uncovered. But I wasn't going to let her win. I had the law on my side and I had the truth. I was ready for the final battle. In the meantime, I kept my focus on the kids, knowing that whatever happened, I had to be the strong, stable parent they needed. I just hoped I was enough to keep her from tearing everything apart. The court battles dragged on, and I could feel the tension mounting every time I stepped into that courtroom. Sarah's game was to keep spinning her lies, claiming I was an abuser, that I was controlling her, and that she deserved the house because I was supposedly violent and unreasonable. It was infuriating. Every piece of evidence I brought, every witness statement, and every bank record was meant to cut through her lies. My lawyer was relentless, pushing back against her accusations and exposing her manipulative tactics. One of the biggest blows came when her own sister. She refused to lie for Sarah anymore, confirming that the deposit into her account was not a loan or a gift, but money Sarah had secretly transferred after we separated. That was a crucial piece of evidence. It proved Sarah was actively hiding assets and trying to cheat the system. The judge looked at all the evidence and ordered a forensic audit of her bank accounts and financial activity. I felt a small sense of victory, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. Meanwhile, Sarah's efforts to manipulate the situation intensified. She started claiming I was threatening her, that I was unstable, even filing a restraining order against me. I was stunned. I had done nothing but gather evidence and fight to protect myself and the kids. To her, that was abuse. But the truth was, she was grasping at straws. I had witnesses who saw her sneaking around with Mike, and I had messages where she admitted to cheating. The court saw through her lies, and I was awarded full custody of the children. That was a huge relief, but it came with a bitter taste, knowing she was trying to turn them against me. As the days went by, I kept uncovering more. She was trying to sell valuables, withdraw large sums of cash, and even attempt to transfer the house's title to her name. I had the court freeze her accounts again, and I filed motions to prevent her from selling or transferring any more assets. I also hired a real estate appraiser to evaluate the house, which was worth around $350, $0. I knew she'd try to argue she deserved half, but I had the legal documents showing our savings and assets, and I was prepared to fight for every penny. One particularly shocking discovery was her attempt to open a new bank account under a false name. She thought she could hide more money that way. Luckily, the bank flagged the suspicious activity and I alerted my lawyer. We managed to freeze that account before she could move any funds. It was a close call, but it confirmed my suspicion that she was planning to run or hide even more assets. I felt a mixture of anger and frustration. How could she go so far? How could she betray everything we built for her own greed? Throughout all this, I also had to manage my own emotions. I was devastated, betrayed by the person I loved. I felt humiliated that she'd lied and cheated on me, and I was furious that she was trying to steal our home and savings. But I knew I had to stay strong for the sake of the kids and myself. I kept reminding myself that I was fighting for justice, for my future, and for theirs. I couldn't let her win, no matter how much pain I felt. Then came the final court date. I was nervous but prepared. All the evidence was laid out: her lies, the deposit into her sister's account, her attempts to liquidate valuables, and her manipulative accusations. My lawyer presented everything convincingly, showing that she was trying to cheat the system and that she had been unfaithful and dishonest from the start. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue that she should get half the house and the savings, but the judge saw through her manipulations. In the end, I was awarded the house, the savings, and full custody of the kids. It was a hard-fought victory, but it felt like justice. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Sarah was furious, but she knew she had lost. She tried to appeal, but the evidence was overwhelming. She moved out of the house, leaving behind her lies and her schemes. I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild what she had tried to destroy. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house was now mine, and I had the legal right to keep the savings. But the emotional scars lingered. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and part of me wondered if I'd ever fully recover from the pain. Now, I'm focusing on the future. I've started therapy, trying to process everything, and I'm working on healing from the betrayal. The kids are adjusting, and I'm doing my best to give them stability. I've learned a lot through this ordeal about trust, about the importance of protecting myself, and about how some people will do whatever it takes to get what they want, even if it means destroying everything else. If I could give anyone advice, it would be this: stay vigilant, keep your evidence, and don't let anyone manipulate or lie their way into taking what's yours. Because in the end, honesty and integrity are what truly matter. Looking back now, I realize how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to believe in fairness, in doing the right thing, but I've learned that some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate just to get what they want. Sarah's betrayal was a wake-up call. It showed me that trust is fragile and that sometimes you have to fight tooth and nail to protect what's yours. I never thought I'd be the guy to go through a divorce, let alone fight so fiercely for my rights, but here I am. The house is finally mine, and I know I did everything I could to hold on to it. The savings are secure, and I've started rebuilding my life. It's not easy. There are days when I feel the weight of everything she did to me, days I question if I'll ever truly move on. But I remind myself that I'm stronger than I thought, and I have a responsibility to my kids to be the best dad I can be. They deserve stability, honesty, and love, things Sarah tried to take away, but I'm determined to give them anyway. If I had any advice for others in a similar situation, it would be this: document everything. Keep every message, every bank statement, every piece of evidence. Don't trust blindly, especially when it comes to money or your partner's loyalty. Protect yourself legally if you suspect anything suspicious. And most importantly, don't let betrayal define you. It hurts, it's devastating, but it's also a lesson. You find out who your real friends are, who's honest, and what you're truly capable of when your back's against the wall. This experience has taught me that justice isn't always easy or quick, but it's worth fighting for. That sometimes you have to be the one to stand up, to fight for what's right, even if it means going through hell first. I've learned that dishonesty and greed can ruin lives, but integrity and resilience can rebuild them. Now, I focus on moving forward, healing, and making sure my kids see that even after the worst betrayal, there's still hope. I may have lost a lot, but I've gained clarity, strength, and a renewed sense of what truly matters: honesty, family, and the courage to stand up for yourself.